Welcome back to Life's Chillent. My name is Avital, and this week's Parshat is Parshat Re'eh. And Parshat Re'eh teaches us some very beautiful lessons, especially as it pertains to providing assistance to those who are poor. But what I want to share today is a beautiful lesson that Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory spoke about in 2019. And what Rabbi Sachs spoke about is joy, and how important it is to have other people around us who we can celebrate and to rejoice with. So Parshat Re'eh features the word joy or rejoice a total of 7 times. And as Rabbi Sachs pointed out when he talked about this Parsha, the word joy only appears a total of 16 times throughout the entire 5 books of Moses, 12 of them in the book of Devarim, and 7 of them in this Parsha. So just under 50% of all of the mentions of joy in the 5 books of Moses happen in this week's Parsha. And so why is that, is what Rabbi Sachs was questioning. Why is it that just short of 50% of all of the mentions of joy are in this Parsha? So to better understand that question, let's look at what those 7 instances are. So the first and second are surrounding the sort of commandment to the Jewish people that when they have offerings, they are not allowed to build altars just anywhere that they want to bring an offering to God. That was something that was very common in other faiths, but the Jewish people had to bring their offerings to the Mishkan, the tabernacle, or eventually to the temple. And what the first verse says is it says, "You shall eat there before Hashem your God, and you shall rejoice with your every undertaking, you and your households as Hashem your God has blessed you." So the first and the second I only read you the first, but they sort of echo that same idea about bringing all of our offerings to the Mishkan and rejoicing in them with those in our homes. The third reference refers to that the first of our cattle, the first sort of the oil, the wine, there were certain things that needed to be eaten in Jerusalem, that people had to bring the first of their harvest, I suppose, to the Mishkan or to the temple to be eaten. And the verse says, you, your son, your daughter, your slave, your maidservant, and the Levite who is in your cities, and you shall rejoice before Hashem your God in your every undertaking. So again, there we have the rejoicing in your undertaking, and here the list of who you're supposed to rejoice with is getting bigger. The fourth mention stands a little bit alone in that it says that if we make so much money, if we have such an abundance of this produce that we can't bring a proper tithe, a proper percentage to the Mishkan, to the temple, because it's too far away, we can bring money in exchange. But it continues to echo that this is something that we would rejoice with our household. Now, the 5th, 6th, and 7th talk about Shavuot, and they talk about Sukkot, pilgrimage festivals. So the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, would be the 3 times a year when everyone had to go to Jerusalem in order to bring offerings to God. And when it talks about Shavuot, that's the one I'm going to read, it says, "You shall rejoice before Hashem your God, your son, your daughter, your slave, your maidservant, the Levite who is in your cities, the proselyte, the orphan, and the widow who are among you." And when it talks about Sukkot, the 7th reference, it says, "You will be completely joyous." And so what Rabbi Sachs, in essence, goes on to say is that simcha, joy in Hebrew, is a little bit different than the way we think about joy in our culture, in America, in the English-speaking world. Because joy is something we can each experience on our own. But simcha, this type of happiness that the Torah is talking about, is something that we can only experience when we are with others. And so Rabbi Sachs, he wrote this in when he was talking about the Parsha. He said, quote, "It is easy to speak to God in tears. It is hard to serve God in joy." Meaning that we often come together as a community when there's a tragedy. When there's a tragedy, you'll see people you haven't seen in ages coming together to help you, to be there for you. And that is a beautiful and meaningful thing. But for the little accomplishments, the everyday things, we don't have as much of an army behind us to support us to bring joy. And so the lesson that I took away from this, and this is where I suppose I deviated or I expanded on Rabbi Sachs's thinking, is that it's very interesting because there is this question of why was it that God said that we can't be like the other nations who built altars in all of these places to serve their gods? Why is it that we have to come to one central location in order to serve God? Why? It's not as convenient, it's not as easy, it doesn't make as much sense. But I think it would be because that, in essence, God knows that we need people. God knows that we need communal spaces. God knows that we need community, and God knows that we need other people. No man is an island, as they say. We can be happy on our own, but our joy is so much greater when we have other people to share it with. And so God, in recognition of this human need for companionship, made it so that we would multiple times in a year have to come to this place of prayer and communal space so that we would be able to share time with people, so that we would be able to catch up, so that we would be able to rejoice and celebrate our accomplishments. And everyone was included. God listed all of the different sort of categories of people. Everybody needed to be included. This was not just for the rich. This was not just for the poor. This was a time when everybody, no matter who they were, came together and supported one another in joy and in happiness. And I think that's a very beautiful lesson for us, that we need a sense of belonging. We need a community. We need to be able to lean on other people in difficult times just as much as in joyous times. And when we have someone to share our joy with, it makes it so much more beautiful, and it takes that joy and it makes it into simcha. It makes it into this next level of happiness. And it can be hard. Not all of us live in a vibrant Jewish community. Not all of us have the same access to community as others. But we can build community in our own ways. We can create community if we really try. There can be lots of things. If you like reading, start a book club. If you like writing, start a writing club. If you like to get outside and be social and ask somebody, invite them to go on a walk with you. There are so many ways that we can build community for ourselves, and that will bring us so much more joy. And so I think it's a very beautiful lesson we can learn from this week's Parsha. I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.